What is something that universally every single human being can say that they have experienced? Emotions. Sadness and happiness, joy, glee, absolute loneliness and emptiness. Basically every human on earth has probably experienced a lot of emotions, feelings inside of their lifetime. They are inevitable. You can't really avoid them. They can just come, but it's how you deal with them. If you don't like these emotions present, some people, while a lot of people in the modern society say that we should embrace emotions, we should embrace sometimes feelings of sadness, sometimes feelings of anxiety and depression, we should really embrace these, which I think is dreadful advice. People don't like feelings of sadness, feelings of depression and anxiety. So why would it be reasonable to suggest that we should embrace them? While we may be able to analyze them, we may be able to analyze their cause. Often emotions are just things that exist. They can't be defined and set to a cause. You can't say that this caused me to this to happen. You can just suddenly experience sadness after receiving a piece of information. You could be watching a YouTube video that reveals a bitter truth about something that you currently do, a bitter habit that you do on a daily basis that you've now figured out was actually bad for you. That's going to cause you to be sad. And you shouldn't wallow in that sadness. You shouldn't embrace that sadness. You should understand its existence, and then it's how you deal with that sadness, how you recover from that sadness, that is the important part. The funk gets us all. These feelings of sadness will happen to absolutely everyone. Everyone will get the negative thoughts inside of their mind. It's unavoidable. It's inevitable. It's unreliable. It's untruthful for someone to say that they don't experience negative thoughts, because that is simply not true. They always will. Mental health is not where you have infallible positive thoughts constantly streaming through your mind. It's where you are immediately able to recover from this by experiencing simple pleasure and happiness almost immediately after. You can receive a piece of information about some food that you commonly ate that you actually realize wasn't necessarily great for your diet. That's going to cause you a feeling of sadness. You don't deal with that sadness by continuing to do that, because that will then cause feelings of guilt, which you can't necessarily deduce where that specifically onset from. It could just be any random moment. You eat that food, 20 hours later you just feel guilty when you ate it 48 hours ago. Emotions are one of these weird sort of things that scientists are yet to really understand, because they're not necessarily a scientific process. They aren't this happens and this happens. It just happens, and humans aren't really able to understand and accept that. Sometimes things just do happen. A lot of things can be brought down to science, but a lot of things just can't. Feelings and emotions and the way that humans act irrationally is one of them. It's how you deal with the sadness that is important, and that will be the thing that helps you throughout the majority of your life. Just going and taking a relaxing walk will help you clear your mind, will help you assess the situation. You can then analyze these feelings. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? You may not come to a definite conclusion, but by the end of it, you may feel better about yourself. You may feel better about your current experience and situation, not because you got to the root cause, but because you understood something that you could do to combat it. You can now get rid of that habit, get rid of that food from your diet. You can change your life for the better because you experience these feelings of sadness. You don't wallow in them. You don't embrace them. You don't sort of... Undoubtedly, it's okay to be sad. I'm not going to be insensitive in that sense of the imagination. It's fine because everyone experiences it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should continue to experience it because you feel like everyone else is. You should try to get out of that sadness. No one likes negative emotions. They are horrible things. It's a horrible thing to feel negative. So it's almost logical to want to get rid of them, and instead of sort of wallowing them like everyone else seems to do, like the internet advice tells you to do, you should get rid of them through continuing to improve yourself. If you imagine you suddenly get negative bouts in between massive sort of spurts of, in between massive lengths of consistent positive thinking and consistent good feelings, if that tiny snippet of negativity ends up accelerating in its distance, ends up expanding to become a bigger part of your life, that is going to be a big issue. But if you continue doing what you were doing before, But if you continued what you were doing before, to the most part, unless the reason you're experiencing the specific sadness is because you realized something you were doing before was wrong, if you continue what you're doing before without doing the thing that's the reason that the sadness is existing inside of your life, then you will end up getting out of that rut, that phase, just by getting rid of the thing that that sadness was causing and continuing to do everything else, not trying to completely change things up. You experience a lot of sadness, so now you're going to have a day where you watch TV a lot, you play video games, you don't go to the gym, you don't eat right. Instead of just having that, which may not benefit you in the long term, is instant gratification, essentially, you continue doing what you do without the thing that causes sadness, and then you will eventually get out of that funk. A funk can last for an hour, it can last for days, it can last for weeks. It depends on how long you let it. You can suddenly get a barrage. You could suddenly get a barrage of negative thoughts and feelings and emotions, and it depends on how you deal with them, how you sort of respond to them, that dictates how long that lasts and how long that expansion actually goes on for. And there's so many different ways to respond to these negative feelings. I can't give you a one and done solution. I can't give you a top 10 ways to get rid of this like constant negative feeling inside of your head. Not constant, but whenever you get it, I can't tell you that, because it is individual and it is individually specific to whoever is currently experiencing that pain. No one could necessarily help me other than give me the advice when I'm going through a potentially negative experience and emotional feeling. That the way to feel positive again is to do what you're doing without doing what you were doing that caused that sadness. If that sadness, you can't relax. If that sadness, when you've gone on your relaxing walks in nature, you haven't understood what caused it potentially, then continue doing what you're doing and you will be fine again. Because unless it is clear and obvious, when you first watch a self-improvement content video, you immediately like go into a weirdly depressive phase where you realize your life was a lie and everyone has told you was just false, and now you really need to get into the gym, you need to eat right, you need to do all this sort of stuff. Obviously, doing what you're doing before is going to leave you with immense feelings of horror and guilt. You have to change something. That's like an obvious sort of change that you have to make your mental health and make your thoughts inside of your head more positive and like just general better for your own existence. But if there isn't a definite root cause, you're just sad because your body hasn't experienced that emotion in a while maybe, and it just needs to express some kind of weird trauma that you had from 20 years ago even, it could be, then just continue doing what you're doing and you will be positive again. It's specific to every single individual, and I can't give you one and done. Instead of relax, figure out the root cause. If you can't figure out the root cause, continue doing what you're doing. About all I can say, but I just wanted to clarify this because so many people seem to think that it's okay to it's okay to be sad. It's not good for you. It's not good for you. It's okay if you are staying sad because you haven't figured out the solution. That's okay, because that's something that's solvable. It's not okay to stay sad because you want to stay sad because you've been told that's the way to embrace your feelings and stuff. That's not a good way to look at life. It's okay to be sad. It's not okay to continuously stay sad, because that's just simply not good for you. It's going to be stressful. It's not going to be a fun time. And I highly recommend that you do everything in your power to improve your mental health using tactics like meditation and journaling, all those sort of relaxing stuff that can help you figure out root causes of things. Even though emotions sometimes just don't have a specific root cause, then you just carry on doing what you're doing, as I've said many times in this video. But with that, I highly recommend subscribing, because I like this community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves so much more than they already have, and good luck.